And welcome back to weboughtamic, WBAM fam, pop culture podcast, a pop culture stick to the plan cast.
Execute.
Don't improvise cast. Talking David Fincher's new film, The Killer. Welcome. My name's Ernest.
I am human and I need to be loved.
My name is Morrissey. Hunter Morrissey.
Well, you took mine. Hey, what? This is an old joke of mine. What does it sound like? I'm writing a sort of the Morrissey style musical about spices on a spice rack and like the drama they go through them. Here's one of the songs. I am Cuban. I'm Drew.
Okay, that's good.
Welcome. This is pod number 2 of the day. Mm-hmm. So we're a little looser, a little leaner, a little meaner.
Yeah, you could say that.
Just like everyone else does.
I've been really working on my Morrissey.
That's a great song.
Oh no, it's a fucking banger.
Yeah, man.
Dude, that's the opening song, right? When he's doing the
Yeah, it's in the opening death scene, and it's the way that it is kind of, man.
I'm going to say it right now. Let's get ahead of it. Johnny Marr, one of my 5 favorite guitarists ever. The guitarist of the Smiths.
On that song, that's an all-timer.
He's fucking phenomenal, man. Like, he's a game changer. And then he joined Modest Mouse for like the worst of Modest Mouse.
Yeah, that's a bummer. It's a bummer. But
die by your side is such a heavenly way to die. Welcome. We're here.
Is it bad that like I'm fully entering my 30s, so I'm just like, hey, I've been listening to a lot of the Smiths lately.
Yes.
Well, you already did the REM run.
Well, REM was earlier. No, I guess that was last year into this year. REM rules for people that don't, the haters that are out there. The haters are trying to sabotage me.
Well, I have
love
to enjoy the
rock.
last 4 months of my 20s that I have. So I can't dive in all the way. I need
you
to
already
continue.
are going to see Death Cab for Cutie bring in your 30th birthday.
I am not.
Ernest, I need you to check your email because you have tickets right now. That's your 30th birthday gift, is that they just send them to people.
I'm so scared that I won't like 100 gex anymore.
The clock's going to strike midnight and you're going to be like, not doing anything for me.
I hate them. So, The Killer, David Fincher. On Netflix right now, doing very well on Netflix, might I add. I think it was number 1 the first 2 weeks and has lingered in the top 10 since then. I think it's on its 4th week, going into its 4th week on Netflix. We talked about it briefly whenever we last did a podcast about it, but we didn't really get into any specifics. So we're here to dive deep into David Fincher's latest film. You know what I did? I listened back to our review of Mank.
Oh. Have you changed your opinion since then? You realize that I was right, huh?
I realized that maybe I should have watched it on 1.25 speed. Maybe I would have liked it more.
I will say that I think that The Killer would have been a better movie if Mank was in it. The Killer never gets credit.
Hey,
you know who got credit? Mank, because he asked for it.
You know what? He was in it. His spirit carried through.
He actually is the hooker at the beginning of the movie who gets killed. It's Mank.
That's Mank.
Yeah, if you like enhance that image.
So, what did we think of The Killer?
Drew, do you want to go first since we gave our preliminary thoughts a couple weeks ago?
We both liked it. Mm-hmm. We were both fans.
I really like The Killer. I thought it was awesome. I think it holds up well in your head because it gives, even though watching it is almost a weirdly straightforward experience, it gives you things to think about afterward. It's for a Fincher at the very least, you'd call it stripped down. Or at least I would, you know what I mean?
Yeah, he's back on his bullshit. You know, he's not trying all these bells and whistles. Well, but there's still a lot there.
No, of course, there's a ton there, but I mean, it's stripped down in terms of like subject matter. Like we're following one dude. We are the secret complexity of the movie, at least logistic wise, is we are covering a lot of activity and like geography. And it's almost just like not even, it's like hardly even discussed. Like you hardly notice how much is happening as you're watching the movie because you're being shown and not told. And also you're not being taken through.
Sorry.
This is unbearable.
God, this is a nightmare.
Bring the old mixing.
We should have never given this guy a soundboard.
This sucks. What is the problem where you
How sensitive are those
how
buttons?
close
that
is
you're
the
just
button
like-
to the knob?
Oh, giggity.
I just have to keep the volume down so that I don't fuck it up again.
Jesus Christ.
So
You're saying.
oh, I don't remember. Well, you tell me what I was saying.
All right, so The Killer is split into chapters. I think a really good way to talk about the movie is chapter by chapter.
Oh, well, and yeah, so that's what I was saying is because, yeah, we have this chapter structure and each chapter is significantly different than the last one. You know what I mean? Like we're covering ground, we're covering plot, but what we're not being taken on necessarily is like a giant emotional arc.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't, a lot of the time, you'll blink and realize that like, oh wow, actually a lot has like happened, in the last 5 minutes. It just doesn't feel like it necessarily.
I think that The Killer is a movie. I wish I would have had a chance to rewatch it before before we're doing this like re-examination. I definitely want to rewatch it again before year end to kind of finalize where it's going to end up on my big list. But I do think that there is like this movie is going to be one of the movies from 2023 that I will rewatch most frequently, regardless of like where it ends up on my list. Because I think that there is something that is just so breezy about this. It's something about this that does feel kind of B movie-y, but it's like at the highest possible level of achievement.
It's
and that's
a hitman movie.
That's like
it's an assassin movie.
But I think that that's like where David Fincher is really in his bag, is kind of elevating genre, and that's something that
Oh, he's in his bag. So you're saying he's not in his bag when he's
he's in his daddy's.
about...
He's in his daddy's bag in Mank when he's talking about Mank.
Okay.
Which we all have daddy issues that we should go to therapy over probably. I think that this movie is really funny. And like a year full of directors making kind of movies trying to grapple with themselves and how they view themselves. Like The Killer is the most blatant and obvious one, where it is a movie about a guy who's just like exacting, make no mistakes, make sure that everything is going like perfectly
No
attuned,
empathy.
and it's no empathy. It's David Fincher literally like making a movie about himself and taking also what's like a pretty like schlocky book by all accounts, and then just kind of putting his
It's like
own
a comic
flair
book
on it. But like it's funny that that's just something that has come out of this year. When you think about that, you think about something that's even more sensitive, like a Past Lives, which is like a very like close and personal story. Oppenheimer is kind of a movie about Christopher Nolan in a lot of ways. Like it's a lot of directors really trying to make movies about themselves through their material. But The Killer is
I think that a lot of people have said that it's more so him making fun of people's idea of him rather than how he really views himself. He's kind of poking more fun at like the concept, like the popular concept of David Fincher.
I think that there's a sense of I think there's a sense of knowing. I think he kind of knows like, I can be a little bit of an asshole. Like if you listen to him in interviews, where one of the best interviews that I've heard in years is the one where he's talking with Ben Affleck from 2020. Yeah, because it was right around Mank time.
Yeah.
It's incredible. And in that, he like basically is just like, no, Ben, I was a fucking nightmare to you on the set of Gone Girl. But also like that kind of sense of knowing is something that makes David Fincher like one of our guys. A special filmmaker.
I think this movie is so fascinating because the main character, does he have a name? The killer?
No, he's just
the killer. Played by Michael Fassbender, and an incredible performance. I think he's so good in this movie. He has a lot of voiceover narration. Most of this movie is him just kind of narrating his internal monologue. And he does it in a way where you feel like he has a handle on what he's doing. And he's very, controlling of his surroundings and of his actions. And what you see him do is not, it doesn't quite align with that. He fucks up a lot in this movie. He makes a lot of mistakes. And I think that if you're trying to align that to a meta comparison with David Fincher, I think that if you're trying to carry that metaphor, it is a lot of him just knowing that his perfectionism is ultimately somewhat futile.
Yeah.
Because this character, we see him do his job very well. And we see him do his job very poorly as well at the same time. So I think that meta angle can only go so far. And I think that the majority of this movie fits into just this idea of how to view this exact character that we're seeing of what Michael Fassbender is playing. And I like the idea of adding these meta layers to it, but I don't know if that's 100% necessary in the full enjoyment of this movie.
I think it adds enjoyment if you're like a movie dork person, because it absolutely, like, I think it is intended for you to be able to read it that way. However, the average person who just turns on Netflix and puts this on, they don't need to be able to read it that way.
It plays both ways.
Yes.
However,
Yeah.
it does add a layer of,
It adds a layer of humor to it.
it adds a layer of humor, but also it adds a layer of substance to a movie that, as I said, is sort of sparse at times. And so it can add a layer of like quality in a way, because I really, really like this movie, but I a lot of the time I was thinking about it in like that contextless world where, like, well, if I didn't know everything I know about him, then I wouldn't be getting quite as much out of this movie right now, because
more bare
it's
bones.
not giving a ton necessarily. It's still an enjoyable movie. It's written, so yeah, it's an adaptation of like a French graphic novel from like the mid 2000s, and the adaptation is done by Andrew Kevin Walker, who wrote Seven. I want to say, he wrote Seven back in the day, and then a bunch of non-Fincher stuff that's also like honestly not high quality stuff.
8mm, Sleepy Hollow.
There's some good stuff in there,
8mm
but it's not like
shade.
this is like a like a writer where you're like, holy shit,
Right.
hits on his, and then this, and
Hey man, he has script doctor credit on The Game and Fight Club.
Okay.
So what I guess what I'm saying is I think the biggest enjoyment that I got out of this movie is the massive mislead that it is, in terms of like how it starts versus what it is.
Yeah.
I think that is because I was really annoyed by the beginning of the movie, and I think that's almost on purpose. Like it wants you to be like
Everything up to him firing.
Yeah,
the bullet.
because
Everything
it's-
up to him fucking up.
yeah, because it's just a bunch of monologue about this is what I do. This is my life.
I mean,
and it's like
shut the process.
and it's I don't think that the writing quality is super high on that monologue stuff, to be honest. I don't think it's like top tier monologue writing. I don't. And looking this dude up afterward, it's like, yeah, this isn't a guy who's known for writing great top tier stuff ever. Like,
I
you know what I mean?
The attention is naturally drawn to that because it is just a guy staking out his target by himself.
And it's like, yeah, it looks great, but we're spending 10 to 15 minutes when the beginning of the movie is when, as an audience, you are really trying to key in and figure out what you're watching.
I think that the thing about this movie, and I think that it actually feeds in really well to the over serious monologues that are at times just like, they're like so like eye rolling at points because it's so just like over the top and like self dramatic. It's giving like I watched The Dark Knight once kind of energy of like just this is what like truly I'm a master at work right now. The thing that makes this movie like really work for me is that he sucks at his job. He's bad at his job. Like you said, you see him do good at his job. I think like barely. I think for the most part, he's like constantly fucking up throughout his entire job. He definitely has a process. And so like, that's good for you that you have a process. You have your workout playlist that you listen to on your Zune, but like he misses the shot. He gives the dog like the wrong amount of drugs for things. Like he's constantly doing things throughout the entire film that are just leading you to believe that like maybe he isn't really that great at this. And like it's almost like maybe this is an easier job than you might think that this would be. Like the whole idea of being a hitman isn't this like glamorous. Not glamorous. Glamorous isn't necessarily the right word, but it's not like
James Bond.
Yeah, it doesn't take a fucking super genius to do this. It's mostly can you be at the right place at the right time, and then otherwise like you can kind of fumble your way through it and just hope for the best. As long as you don't like disobey the code, whatever that is. If that's just like don't go home, don't start a family, don't do whatever.
Yeah,
which he even fucks that part up. Like he doesn't do the one thing you're supposed to do as a hitman.
No,
that's be like faceless.
Exactly. And that's why this movie like as a whole works really, really well for me, is because like what you're seeing is really different than what you're hearing inside this guy's brain. It's just a matter of how much of that is super intentional versus not, in terms of like the writing being things that you've heard before. That said, it's David Fincher. He directed the fuck out of the movie. It looks incredible. It's probably like color palette wise his darkest movie, at least since Seven.
Absolutely.
It's super dark and very digital, and it's done in such a way that you are not looking at it thinking that it's a Netflix looking movie. And it's hard to explain what a triumph that is, that it doesn't have, because he also in part sort of almost invented like the Netflix aesthetic of digital
House of Cards,
digital darkness. Yeah. But it's almost like a green tinted darkness that you see a lot in this movie. And it looks awesome. Like he did a great job. He made it look good.
Yeah. I mean, his whole thing is wanting control over every single inch of the frame. And you get that in this movie. You understand that because it is much more of a pared down approach, he has full control of everything you're seeing and everything you're hearing. So why don't we kind of go chapter by chapter? So you've touched on this opening chapter of him doing this extensive monologue and then fucking up his target. I agree with part of your point about it being a little bit drawn out, but I went into this movie like not really knowing what to expect at all. I just know that it's a David Fincher movie about an assassin. And so you're dropped into it immediately. You're with the assassin the whole time. So I wasn't really like spinning my head too much about what was going to happen. Like I was getting the David Fincher movie about the assassin right from the jump. And I just found it hilarious that it's a lot of just meandering.
Yeah, monologue. A lot of waiting around.
and that carries through the bulk of the movie about how he's just dropping in these kind of false philosophical tidbits about his process. And the way they're dropped are intentionally funny. And there are moments where you can't help but laugh because he comes in with his voiceover in a moment where it just feels funny. So it's a perfect setup to that.
I agree. It's also a complete reversal of what the entire point of narration is supposed to be, which is why it's funny, because like usually you're shown something and then the narration gives you more of like an idea of what's going on in that person's head, when really in this movie, what we're shown is giving us way more information about this guy than what he's saying in his head.
What he's actively going against what he's saying in his head multiple times, where it's just like forbid empathy, and then he does something empathetic. Fight only the battles you're paid to fight, and then he just like kills a guy that it just because he's like fully letting the emotion rule him. He's breaking his own rules that he put in place. For
so it is like really intentionally like visually it's completely subverting the entire idea of having narration. The entire point of narration is subverted.
And he listens to the Smiths. That's what also gets introduced.
I do think, as I've been thinking about it, as a guy who's entering his Smiths era, the whole point of him listening to the Smiths is so funny. It's like such a funny choice that's just like, I'm gonna listen to like the most like serious and over dramatic.
It's every song.
It's
only the Smiths.
It's the Smiths and then Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross's score, which I will say the score for this movie is really, really good.
When he's escaping on the bike.
Yeah. The opening credits score that's like booming playing is awesome. But it's just that. Like, it is just that. Whenever the credits rolled in the theater, we laugh because there's like 12 Smith songs that are credited. Like, it's funny.
So he fucks up the shot. I thought that was a great moment. There's so much buildup. It's so drawn out. I think it's got to be like 15 minutes or something up until the point where he fires that bullet, and it's just so much buildup, and he fucks it up. And I thought that was such a kind of lean forward moment where you're just like, oh, okay, here we go. This is the movie now. You strung me along and now you've given me a left turn and now I'm in. And I thought that was very, very effective. And then immediately we get into the getaway part of the story where he goes back to his home. And that's where you start to sprinkle in some of the backstory. I love how this movie doesn't really give you any major flashback sequences or exposition dumps or anything like that. You're really just in this guy's experience, in this guy's head. And then right after that, very quickly, you get into the next chapter where we see Parnell. Yeah, Charles Parnell. In basically a hub of assassin
first he goes
control.
First he goes back to the Dominican Republic, right?
Yeah, that's what I said.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, no, so he goes there, I will say just the Dominican Republic stuff, going back to this guy just kind of being dumb. One moment in the movie that I really, really love is whenever his lover gets taken to the ICU, whatever. And the doctor, it does this thing where they're in this hospital that you can tell the lights are flickering on. And then he tries to tip the doctor $10,000 for
to
doing
a better
her
doctor.
Job. And she just is disgusted, looks at him, just do you think you can just buy your way out of whatever situation you're in? There's little moments throughout this entire movie like that are just rock.
It feels
they work
modern.
On multiple levels.
It feels very modern. You start out in the abandoned WeWork. That's where he's staking it out. Then you go into DR with the hospital, and then later on it's the gym and the Amazon locker, and
yes,
there's all these. A lot of people have described it as a movie about the gig economy. And I think that's another fascinating way to read it, where we've created a system in modern capitalism for people like assassins to operate very easily. Just
drop boxes everywhere.
Yeah. The self-storage
anywhere you go.
units.
Yeah. It's really funny because that is, obviously it's one of the only things that you could not lift from the source material at all. There was no such thing as an app in 2007
or Amazon. Yeah.
And that is, at least I read a thing that said that was an Andrew Kevin Walker thing. And I think that's probably, at least, as far as I can tell, that's my favorite thing that he added in particular to this script, because, that was one of my biggest takeaways of the whole movie thematically is it's easy to do this shit now because we don't want to interact with each other.
Right.
That's an awesome thing to sort of harp on. And it's a really cool read on the movie. And it starts even from the very beginning, because he's in an abandoned WeWork.
Exactly. You see all the specific real world examples of how someone could do this.
So it also does give me a little bit of concern as to how this movie's going to play in like 5 years when none of these apps like exist anymore. You know what I mean? And like there's definitely a chance that like some of these things are going to look really stale, almost like how in fucking Glass Onion, like during the part where they have masks on, you're like, wait, what the fuck?
Well, I mean, that's a thing with any of those COVID movies. I mean, unfortunately, I don't know if Amazon or the idea of drop boxes are going anywhere. I feel like if anything, that might just continue to become even more prevalent, except maybe you can just have drones drop.
No, that's definitely like the idea of it's going to get better and better, but just the idea of like saying like we work in DoorDash and all those like all those names.
Yeah,
you're gonna be like, oh wow, that year
that was the time.
Well, it's like, I mean, it's the same thing for like whenever you listen to music, especially like hip hop music, and they're just like, call me on my iPhone, and like things like that of just like things that are like super dated ringtone based songs, like shit like that. That's, you know, it's kind of dated in some kind of way, but part of that is like might be a charming thing, might turn you off. Only time will tell for that.
Charles Parnell.
Yeah. So I will say, all 5 of these chapters are in very different locations of each other. This is some of the best location work that I've seen in a movie this year, where every place that they go to feels so crazy lived in. It feels like they are truly there in Louisiana when he's there with Charles Parnell. This is.
Yeah, I mean, Paris is the opening. You know, it feels like he's there.
Yeah. We're going to talk about.
You see the video that whole scooter chase is all VFX.
Really?
Yeah.
That's kind of insane. I will say the main thing, and I'm skipping ahead here. We'll go back to Charles Parnell, but like when they are in St. Petersburg, Florida. That's a thing where like David Fincher has been to Florida and he knows the way that light looks in Florida. It reminded me of an interview that we did with a guest during the Tribeca Film Festival a few years ago. We were talking to him about a movie that he made that was set in Tampa and kind of shooting the way that you can shoot light in Florida is unlike anywhere else in the world. And so many filmmakers, whenever you see them try to shoot Florida, it looks like shit. It's like you're shooting this in Southern California. Like you don't have the humidity.
It's too dry out
the
there.
way that the way that light refracts with this kind of like dew that's in the air when it's 97% humidity at all times. It just looks different than it does anywhere else on Earth. And that's something that Fincher totally understands. Or the location scouts. Whoever is that figured out this and how to shoot it this way.
Yeah, I don't know if they actually shot in Florida, but it looks fucking great.
Yeah. Same with New York, with the way that they shoot New York feels very just outside the city. It's incredible. Going back to Charles Parnell, our boy is on a heater right now. Coming off of Top Gun Maverick.
He's kind of like the mastermind behind a lot of these gig workers, these assassins. Tries to stay out of the mess as much as he can, but the killer comes back knocking, and he puts a fucking nail gun in his throat, in his chest.
Which again, going to he's bad at his job. He's like, he'll have 3.5 minutes to tell me everything he needs to know. He bleeds out and dies in 12 seconds.
Yeah, and he's like, oh wow. Well, that's one thing I do like about the movie is it draws attention to the fact that he's bad at things in moments like that. But also, like you said, Ernest, he is not just wholly awful, like at everything. Like he does a lot of things.
Everything leading up to that, like him getting into that building. You know?
He does it so well.
It's incredible.
And him, you know, in the Dominican Republic, finding the taxi guy, that whole little arc where he kills him. It's really, I love that sequence, and B, like he does it well. So it's not just like a bumbling idiot, but it's just a guy who's just like a little bit off, like he's past his prime.
Maybe past his prime, but also maybe just a little overconfident. You know, like he just thinks he can accomplish more than he actually can, and he can't account for every possible factor.
Well, it's just I know he's an unreliable narrator, but I really do get the sense that like he's had mostly success before this.
Yeah.
And so when he's experiencing all this, he's like, oh fuck.
I was curious about like how long has he been doing this for?
It's got to be like a couple decades, 1 or 2 decades maybe.
Yeah, like what was he doing before? You know, is he like
he was a law student with Charles Parnell. That was the backstory there that they squeeze in. Charles Parnell was the law professor that saw a little twinkle in his eye, and he was like, "Hey, you look like a sociopath. You're my little stinker."
I don't know. There was something about, and I mean, I get that would track just because it's Michael Fassbender, who's not exactly like spry, but like, I don't know. There's something that felt different about him versus whenever he meets Tilda Swinton, because Tilda Swinton feels like an old timer. Tilda Swinton feels like she's been doing this for as long as she can remember.
She's almost at the end of the cycle.
Yeah, she feels like somebody, and I mean that. I think that or the Florida sequence are the two best parts of the movie. But there's something about her and what she is in this underworld that is, you can tell that there's like there's some envy that Fassbender carries against her, of just like she's just out here just like flaunting it about, living her dream life.
Yeah, well,
even though she's still living in the same world that he is.
Yeah, but she also has more of an probably through, you know, experience and age, she has like an ability to sort of turn off her lizard brain assassin and just like go enjoy be
a person,
being a rich lady at a restaurant,
which he can't do.
Yeah, like he is so
he's just busy eating fucking McDonald's in Paris.
He's really
McMuffin with no muffin.
Yeah,
he sucks down a fucking gas station egg,
dude.
That was insane.
That is the most sociopathic behavior. That
is that what you do on the way to the podcast every day?
Yeah, I just suckle down those. There's a at my workplace, they have like breakfast, or they just have like snacks and stuff like that in the office, and they have those like gas station style eggs, and I've just seen a guy in the office just I will not name names, just like inhale it in like one bite, and I'm like, that is disgusting. You should go straight to jail for doing that.
He's just blasting the Smiths, man.
Probably
fine.
Yeah.
I genuinely thought that was mozzarella when I saw it. I did not think that was.
No, it's gas station. You think they're selling gas station mozzarella balls? No.
You sweet summer child.
Yeah. I mean, he's got to get the protein. It makes sense.
It's lovely. Generally speaking, I think the way that you land on this movie is gonna come down to like how okay with you are the fact that like, even with all of the, you know, the tension between what we're seeing and what we're hearing with the narration and all of the little micro expression acting that Fassbender is very good at, we are not going to actually get a full, you know, emotional performance out of our main guy that we're following.
It's very cold.
Yeah, it's just going to come down to like, your average person is fully not used to seeing that ever once. You know what I mean? Like,
but he's so good at it.
Oh, he's really good at it.
I don't know who else I would cast in this role, because it's like you look in his eyes and you see a killer.
Yeah. Yeah, he's stone cold. I love everything he wears.
The bucket hat.
Great fits.
Yeah.
Yeah. German tourist, I think he says.
I love the balaclavas.
Yeah. I love how he goes through like certain variations as he's in all these different stages of trying to kind of stay in hiding, you know. It's like it's always the same look but slightly different, you know, more muted, more blacks, more grays. I want to dig into Florida a little bit more, because this
the best action sequence of the year.
This is incredible. What happens? He stakes out it's called The Brute. And the fight scene that breaks out is so well done. It's so visceral. It got so many reactions in the theater. God damn, Fincher. Like, when he flips it on like this, it's just unreal. It's unlike anything else. I thought that was incredible. It's like a little mini movie that happens in the middle of this movie. It's just this action sequence with the Brute, which apparently the Brute is played by this guy named Sala Baker, who played Sauron in The Lord of the Rings.
Oh,
Isn't
wow,
that nice?
Neat.
How can you look that young?
I don't know.
It's crazy. He looks so young in this movie, but
He's
like
47.
How old is he?
Yeah. He has to.
Wait,
Yeah.
he's 47. So in the Lord of the Rings time, he was in his 20s playing Sauron.
They probably just found him and used.
Yeah,
him.
because Sauron's just the physical Sauron is just
You
like
never
a
see his face.
Yeah.
big huge
Yeah.
guy.
Yeah. Well,
I love that whole sequence. Love to see some Florida representation. Shout out to GTA 6 coming soon.
It is an awesome action sequence. Like it is so well done in every way. It goes almost comically long in the way that like a Jackie Chan scene goes.
They're breaking shit.
Yeah, and they're also using a lot of props like Jackie Chan does. Like it's one of those kitchen sink action scenes where it's just like anything that Fassbender can do to stop this fucking guy. Like
Right.
whatever.
And that's another instance where I think the monologue comes in at a certain point and he's trying to kind of settle himself and the brute just comes in and just interrupts it. It just this force he thinks that he can handle it with his little mantras. And there's so many instances in this movie where, like I was saying earlier, you can't help but laugh because the voiceover will just come in with some random hilarious observation that he has about the world. And it's kind of a similar thing here where he is trying to kind of calm himself to a certain extent with his little internal monologue, and the brute just comes in and absolutely destroys it. It's great. I was very scared about the dog. I thought the dog was not going to make it. I'm glad the dog made it.
The dog doesn't make it.
I was very afraid.
Good. We're happy for the dog. Yeah. It's between this and the dollhouse sequence in John Wick Chapter 4 for like my favorite action.
The Hotline
movies.
Miami.
Yeah, for my favorite action sequences of the year. Both of them are just like, it's a filmmaker just like acting, like directing on the absolute apex that you can possibly do.
It's awesome in this movie because it's a release in a way. Like you've seen some action up to that point, definitely. Like he's getting into it. But
You've seen Nailed.
Yeah, but you need like a little bit of that's kind of the thing where it's just like, the reason why, and I don't mean this as a negative purely because I think that John Wick does gun fu better than like pretty much anything else American cinema wise, but like it's the reason why like there's a lack of physicality to just like people shooting each other in like a Hitman style movie that doesn't have the same like visceral nature of like a Jackie Chan movie where it's just dudes fucking punching each other. You sometimes just need two dudes just hit each other a bunch.
This is I'm inventing a new type of guy. It's a guy who is anti-gun for film purposes because it creates too much of a cinematic shortcut.
Right.
It doesn't let you film real action. So he's like, guns should be illegal in America. So any movie set in America, they have to fist fight.
They have to use a cheese grater.
Yeah, use it just.
They gotta get creative. I would love for guns to be legal. Like I love my AR-15, but
I can't.
I love cinema more.
Hey da.
You gotta give.
Oh, giggity go.
All
right.
Please tune in again after this episode. We'll have a whole new set of sounds for you.
There are some pre-stocked sounds.
Oh, I thought those were the ones that just came with it.
It just came. You bought the listeners can't see, but this isn't the shape of Stewie Griffin's head. This mixing board that you bought. So. Oh, okay. These.
I like that one.
Okay.
Some stock.
That's so long. Okay, some applause. All
right, we got to talk about Tilda.
We've been potting for too long, I think.
I am so fascinated by this sequence with Tilda Swinton. I think in a lot of ways it is the core of the movie. It is kind of like the nexus, like fulcrum of the movie, where up until this point you have a lot of buildup, a lot of action, and then he sits down at this table with Tilda Swinton, and they just kind of talk it out. And I found it very fascinating. I think the thing that hit me the most is once they're outside, once they kind of leave the restaurant and you're building up to the moment where she's done, where he kills her, there's a couple little moments there that are very illuminating where you feel like she has the upper hand, or at least she feels like she has the upper hand and she might be able to get away. And there's this little dance that happens where very, very subtly she thinks that she can survive. And one thing that struck me is the way they're stylized. He's dressed in all black and she's dressed in all white. And what they're discussing is these two very opposing viewpoints of how they should carry out their lives, how they should go about their business, and what they need to hold on to in their approach to this life of murder. And when you see it on screen like that, when you see her in all white, you see him in all black, I just thought that, like, damn, this is Fincher just very, very clearly just showing us extremely obvious yin and yang, angel and devil.
This is what this lifestyle could do to you.
The imagery is so obvious, and I like that. I thought that the movie needed that in that moment to be like, okay, this is very clearly like who these people are and who they represent. And this, especially Fassbender coming in as like almost like a Grim Reaper in this sequence. As soon as they sit down, like, she knows that she's done, and the entire time she's trying to avoid it, she's trying to break out of that. And he's just this presence of doom, of death. I thought was very, very well done.
I agree. I think that that's one of the criticisms of this movie, that including like some friends of the pod that I have heard, is that this movie is just very simple. And like that's held against this, is that, like, you know, it's pretty cut and dry, a lot of the things, and a lot of people don't really find depth in it, because I think some of the things that we're saying here, where even like the yin and yang is like so blatant and in your face, like he's not hiding symbolism in a scene like this. It's very clear the dichotomy of these two people that have the same exact profession. But I think that's kind of actually a benefit of this movie.
Helps the movie.
I think, again, this is like what Fincher was trying to make here, especially we keep talking about him like as a filmmaker and like taking in context his entire career. But it's funny to think about this movie as like his follow-up to Mank, because Mank was like his awards play. That was him like, I'm going to play in the system. I'm going to do my role as auteur filmmaker and make a black and white movie that gets lots of awards. And then I think that this was him kind of just being like, I need a reset for myself. I'm going to get back to like what I know best, which is good genre filmmaking.
Do you think that Mank is him missing the shot at the beginning?
No, I think Mank is Tilda Swinton trying to pull the knife on him.
Okay.
It's almost there. It's so close.
I wonder how
So close to being Citizen Kane.
I wonder how many takes per shot he did in The Killer. Like, I would imagine it's lower than average.
Apparently, from what I've heard, it's a lot of ADR. It's a lot of going back.
Oh, he does plenty of that, but do you think that
on set?
Do you think he did a lot of like 50 takes?
Well, I mean, the thing is, the performers that they have here, like Tilda Swinton isn't going to make a whole big press thing about doing like 50 takes in the movie. Tilda Swinton is just like, can we do more? I'm a freak.
Oh, I know.
I'm as much of a freak
You think
about
that
this
whiskey
as you are.
flight? You think that whiskey flight was over?
I will say, Tilda Swinton is my fucking goals in this movie. Like, this is what I aspire to be, is that I go to a restaurant and they have a bottle of wine.
It's your
like,
bottle.
With my bottle. Can I get my bottle coming here? Actually, you know what? I'll have my bottle. I also might do the whiskey flight tonight.
This is
like, that is
Hunter going to Buffalo Wild Wings.
me pulling up into a Bar Louie, like, hey, the whiskey flight. And they're like,
Put on-
here's
put on
Buffalo
my
Trace.
They have a keg just for you.
Yeah. A keg of Mick Ultra just waiting for me.
It's not as though this movie feels slipshod in any way. It definitely doesn't. Like, it feels like very, very measured. It's just because we know so much about him. I really do wonder, like, there are those dynamic shots where like clearly many takes were taken, you know, where like things have to move in such an insanely perfect way for it to look so inhuman the way it does.
Yeah.
And that's his signature. But I think that there's a pretty good likelihood that there are a good amount of shots in this movie that he was like, you know what, that's good. That's all right.
We're
like,
all set.
I think he's just older now. Like he's getting older. He's realizing that like maybe it's not worth being a bad person to like.
Do we think
so-
we aren't going to get another LT versus a Troy Polamalu ad?
That's
Are we beyond that point?
that. Hey, why do you think they're both retired from the NFL
Shit.
at the ripe old age
Yeah.
of like 45?
They retired too early because of Fincher overworking them.
It's just I don't know this because this movie is really really great. It just I think I think a good amount of critiques that you could have of it are legitimate because there is a reason that, for example, even a lot of its most staunch supporters are not giving it 5 stars. You know, there's a lot
because Fincher has given us 5 stars.
exactly. We know what it looks like.
yeah, you judge him. I feel like we grade Fincher on a curb.
Yeah, of course we do. And it's because like watching this, like my natural thought watching it was like, I need more. I need a little more here. I need just a little more here. I really do.
I want to talk about that feeling in the context of the final act because I think that is one thing about this movie is that I don't know if I am satisfied with the ending of this movie. And that might be the point. I think that is kind of what Fincher's getting at here is just like, in the end, it's just like some like fucking dumbass billionaire is like the reason that's responsible for all this. He's like, I don't know.
CEO.
I paid the collateral tax. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know that was going to mean your whole life was going to get fucked.
That guy's a good actor though. I like
it's our guy.
what's his name?
From Mank?
Yeah.
It's Mank.
Arliss Howard.
I really enjoyed his performance, but I agree that it was like, is this the final guy?
I think, and Fincher will do this in his movies where he's just like, I think Fight Club is the only movie where he's just like, we're going to have the big explosive ending, quite literally. Otherwise, in a lot of his movies, it's like we're going to kind
diffuse
everything. It's like Fincher and Coen brothers are kind of like the masters of doing that.
Well,
but I don't know if it's that partnered with him and his lady sipping on tequila sunrises as the sun sets, like that together.
Hold on, let's separate those for a second because first of all, you have the confrontation with Arliss Howard with the client. That's the final chapter, and then you have what I would call the epilogue, which is him going back to Dominican Republic with his girl.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Let's separate those. So
as far as Arliss Howard goes, that's Arliss Howard.
That's the actor. Yeah, he's just the client. He's the guy who hires the
initial
hires him to kill the guy at the
I actually
beginning.
generally liked the idea of that being a final confrontation because you get a lot of sort of built-in the sort of the modernity of the movie that like this guy is the guy calling the shots that's fucking this guy's life up. It's like, yeah, no, this is just a dumb billionaire who's just like, he's just like, yeah, I wanted to kill a guy and then like, it went wrong and someone told me I should have that guy killed. And so I had you killed. Sorry.
It's a guy who has too much money and he doesn't know what to do.
And so I like the idea of that. I also like the idea that Fassbender knows that he can't kill him because it'll be a bigger headache.
Exactly.
For him. He's like,
which feeds into the whole like Amazon, DoorDash.
Of course. And they also
Equinox Gym.
And the very smartly before that, like as he's going up in the elevator, the one thing he doesn't get ahead of is he does see that the CCTV in the elevator is filming him.
Yeah.
So he's like, oh, in that moment, he's like, oh, I guess I won't kill him then.
Right.
Like it's, I don't think that it's like a planned out thing. I think spur of the moment, he's like, well, I'm on this camera.
I mean, that's kind of the whole movie is like, he's convincing himself like stick to the plan. But there's
never a plan. No, the plan goes out the window the second they fuck.
Yeah, and speaking toward the fact that that's funny, like he keeps on saying like don't do anything
don't improvise
or don't do like the Arliss Howard thing is. It does serve a purpose, and he can really easily convince himself that like going after Tilda also and like the muscle guy, that all does have a purpose, but really
it's vengeance. I mean, it's very much John Wick.
Yeah, because like not really. Like if he were to just kill boss man, like the assassin boss, the lawyer guy, if he just killed that guy,
Parnell, yeah.
the head's kind of cut off from there.
Right. Yeah,
It's
that
not
is
like-
kind of the end.
Yeah,
of
like
the,
Tilda isn't going to be like, no, I want to go back on my own volition.
Yeah,
and kill
no
this
one's
guy."
coming
And
after
the
you.
billionaire is not going to be like, hey, I'm going to find a new assassin.
Do we not
Parnell
think-
tells him, like, dude, why aren't you like halfway across the world right now?
Yeah,
Like,
you
could
have
be done.
millions, tens, hundreds of millions of dollars. Do we think that Parnell is just the single head of this whole hitman operative? I'm assuming that it goes way deeper than just Parnell.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I think
but
Parnell
not
is just
enough-
like one source, and then they were able to use him to extract additional information.
but not enough to really matter because he could easily escape.
Oh, no, I think he could escape like fucking day one and it could be totally fine. But if you are on some kind of crazy vengeance hunt or whatever, it comes back to this guy is like kind of dumb. Like maybe it's a thing where he's good at his
Maybe
job, but
he's in
he's
love.
dumb. Oh, like he might just be just a dumb, like, you know, sometimes a lot of dumb people can get good at their job if they do it for long enough, even if they aren't actually great.
No,
at their
you
job.
can. I mean, you can be very good at following a protocol while being stupid as fuck. That's called the military.
Yeah, I mean, and it kind of has a little bit of that, like
Sorry.
military idea to it.
Yeah, of course. Like that's
How?
it's
You
just,
want me on that wall?
You need me on that wall.
I actually did perceive that Charles Parnell is like the head of this whatever this operation is. Like I kind of did. Like he works for like not, you know, he doesn't work for like
He just goes
some,
like scouting, like
Well, he's the main liaison.
yeah, like he doesn't like
scouting NYU law for like, hey, you seem kind of twisted.
yeah, because yeah,
Come
this
here.
movie isn't really about like, you know, like the Illuminati or like some big like Mission Impossible level conspiracy like organization.
Right.
Like it's
It's
just
the
like, yeah, no,
guy.
he just works for this dude who like is based out of New Orleans and like they make really good money like doing assassination stuff. And it's like cool that, you know, they have a great operation
And this
going.
poor woman has to get her neck.
When
broken.
one that yeah, I did want to. She's awesome, and
Yeah.
she actually might be my favorite. It's easy to give it
She's
to
really
her
good.
because she's the person that's really performing in the movie in terms of like showing emotions.
Kerry O'Malley,
I
it's the actress.
yeah, wife of the absolute goat, Mike O'Malley,
Mhm.
host of
What?
host of Nickelodeon Guts.
Oh my
Yeah.
god!
Character-
She's
This is huge.
She's a Broadway person. She was in like Into the Woods
Mhm.
and
Mike O'Malley character in The Good Place. Awesome actor. Obviously like a co-lead of Yes Dear, which is a sitcom that I watched in its entirety as a child for some reason.
It's
Bad
funny.
show.
It's funny how like the moment where he kills her, we're like, oh, he showed mercy. He's like committing a murder, and the reaction we get as that we have as an audience is like, oh, he showed empathy.
I actually,
It's so fucked.
we're going back a bit. I really do love that whole sequence. I love the only time that you ever change perspective in the entire movie is whenever she is locked in the car and like her just like banging, screaming to get out and just like, please, can you just make it look natural so my kids can get the life insurance money? And so then he
That's a good point. Yeah,
he breaks her neck and then pushes her down the stairs so it looks like she just fell.
we're always with the killer. There's very few.
I think that's
moments
the
where we're
only
not.
time where you break from his perspective.
Yeah.
Otherwise, like it is fully from Fincher or from Fassbender's
Yeah.
POV.
So
the entire time.
she's a great actress. Parnell, I think the places I run into trouble in this movie are when people are monologuing at Fassbender. That just really
So are you not as big on the Tilda?
well,
sequence?
that's the thing. The only time that I love it is because Tilda is like she's good enough that it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like Tilda
She can
is
do it.
Yeah, she's like a transcendent
Yeah.
actress. And like her scenes in this, I wouldn't change a thing about what she's doing. It's just that type of interaction just stinks to me. And it's in everything. It's not this, it's not this movie's fault. It's mostly in plays. But the idea of two people face to face and one of them is just talking and like almost like saying everything. Oh, like saying what they think is going through the other one's brain. And they're like, right? Like that stinks of like smart writer syndrome. Like, you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
writer who actually knows it all.
Right,
Like,
right.
That I don't like that. And it bothered me in the Charles Parnell scene where it's like, you're not letting these two actors act with each other.
Well, we also
they're not being allowed to act with each other.
We need some type of exposition at some point in this movie because it's very, very light on it. And so I guess that sequence gets burdened with that for us to understand some type of backstory because clearly this movie is not interested in giving us any type of backstory.
I know. It's just like you could have Fassbender respond a few times shortly.
He's just staring at
He's not saying fucking anything. And even despite all that, Parnell just keeps on talking. And it's like, I've interacted with a lot of people in my whole life, and that's not how any interaction goes.
I think
have you interacted with a lot of assassins?
Yes. Brother, you podcast with one. No, I think that's like the whole thing about this movie, and as it's kind of sat with me, is just like, and another reason why I want to rewatch it is because this feels very subjective. This all feels not just from Fassbender's POV, from the audience perspective, but from a storytelling perspective. We are seeing things as they are happening at Fassbender and his interpretation of things that are happening, which I know if you have a problem with the writing of the scenes, that doesn't like excuse writing faults, but that's almost the way that I look at the way that the dialogue is written, because it's a very specific choice that is being made with the monologuing that's happening, whether it's internal or external. The way that people talk is not like how normal people have a conversation in this world, but it feels like a person recollecting back on the spark notes of what was said to them in the conversation that they had.
That's definitely
in a previous.
No, that's a good point. And it's probably, it was a pre-existing pet peeve of mine. And so, maybe it doesn't ring. Yeah. Maybe it doesn't ring as true for everybody. It's just when I'm watching an actor as good as Fassbender act in a scene where he could be saying something and it's just nothing.
Yeah.
I'm frustrated.
I do think it is kind of like a fun challenge. This late into Fincher's career, for him to give us something that's so pared back, kind of so minimalistic as Fincher can be.
Yeah. A podcast that shall not be named. I think they were even quoting someone else, but they called it like his Soderbergh movie, and that makes the most sense of anything to me.
Absolutely.
Because Soderbergh just like shits out movies.
Yeah, and Fincher and Soderbergh are also like boys. Like they like will help edit each other's movies.
But like timeline wise, for Fincher to make a movie in like 2.5 years, that is him just shitting out a movie. And that's for him, like that's Soderbergh's like 2 months. Yeah, is his 2 years. Right. So like this is his like quick movie.
And even still, there's so many instances where you're just mind blown at the amount of detail. Apparently the wide shot of the building in Paris when he's lining up the shot, like that's a full VFX composite. Mm-hmm. Like that is not a shot of a building. That is all digitally rendered, and multiple sets, multiple singles of rooms just spliced together into a wider shot.
No, there's still stuff like that. And I really appreciated what he was doing a lot of time. In particular, it was all the fact that so much of this movie is shrouded in darkness, and yet you completely see what's going on.
Yes.
And it's not drawing attention to how shitty it looks. Like that is a feat of technology and of ingenuity on David Fincher's part as a man. Like just him.
He's been doing this shit for 20 years. Think about something like Panic Room, which is not a great movie by any means, but that is a movie that knows perfectly how to shoot like shadow.
Himself.
The entire movie is like the lights are out.
Yeah,
right now.
He has crafted the ability to do this out of nothing. And so that's awesome. However, I just think like a shot like that, for example, where like it's just entirely, VFX. If he had just shot a building and put all the energy that he put into making all those VFX into like something else, maybe the movie could have been a little, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Like, are we maybe losing a little bit of the true potential of the movie based on what he's focusing his attention on?
Well, because he wants to control every pixel
Yeah.
that you see. Like that's why.
Yeah,
That's why he does that.
Yeah, when in the past he has done, and I'm sure he did with this movie as well, but he has put just as much energy into zillions of rewrites
Yeah.
on his scripts.
And shooting 100 takes.
Yeah, and doing the million takes. It's just this movie in particular, certain chunks of the script really just struck me as like, I don't think there were a ton of passes on this.
I'm really interested in what Fincher chooses to do next. He has nothing lined up at all. So I mean, really,
Mindhunter.
Yeah, Mindhunter apparently is never coming back. The fuck Ted Sarandos. So that's a bummer. But like, I'm interested to see where he goes because on
Mank
one hand,
2.
one hand,
Mank 2 has been announced just now. Breaking news.
Oh my god, are you breaking news right now? Did he get the credit? Is he back for more credit?
It's a prequel.
Oh my god. No, but speaking of Mank, like, while this movie I do think acts as a bit of a reset and a bit of a return to form for what Fincher is, one thing that I talked about at the time whenever Mank was coming out that I do genuinely like, memes aside, for Mank, is that is probably Fincher's most effective. It's his most emotional movie. And I do wonder if by doing something like The Killer, that's more of a sign that he's going to go back to the cold, callous nature that he's probably best known for. And I mean, he's one of the best. I'm not going to say like, I don't want him to make any more movies because he's one of the fucking goats that we have working right now. But I also don't want him to necessarily lose the emotionality that he has, because I think that he can do emotionality well when the material is provided to him. Now, again, Fincher doesn't write his own scripts. He's not a writer-director in the same way that a lot of the other auteurs that we talk about all the time in this podcast are. And so a lot of it comes down to what is the source material that he is given.
What are the options?
And he does like his own writing specifically with the staging and with the performances that he gets, but not with the source material.
Yeah.
And that's where I just like, can we, I mean, I don't want to pair up with fucking Being the Ricardos Sorkin now, but like, I want him to
Social Network 2.
Social Network 2 is like the long rumored thing, but I want him to find some other creative partner that can pull out all of the best aspects of Fincher.
Well, it's one of those, it's weird because he's such a good director, but his best movies are overwritten because Social Network's way overwritten. Zodiac's way overwritten. Gone Girl is one of my favorite movies ever. It's super overwritten, like shitloads of narration, like
it's a good fit.
So many words.
He needs that.
Yet visually he's so effective. It's just a matter
of smart people and writing about like smart people talking smartly.
Yeah, and it's just a matter.
Put my boy up with Mike Flanagan. Can we have a Mike Flanagan David Fincher film? Give it to me right now. Weird. I'm here for it.
Who says no? It's Mike Flanagan. Anyway,
yeah, he's direct.
It's just, I don't know. It's frustrating because this movie is a movie that's about a very isolated character, so it makes sense for him to not interact with people. However, I think that the script suffers because he doesn't. I guess. You know what I mean? And I think that, I think you're right. I think Fincher is capable of showing more when there are fireworks between people. Like he's good at showing, he's good at showing dynamics and how conversations evolve. Like there, in that Every Frame of Painting video about Fincher way back in the day, back when that guy made videos like 10 years ago, like he talks about how in Seven, a conversation scene, like the angle of every shot evolves as the power dynamic evolves between Morgan Freeman and Brad Pitt and like the police chief or whoever. Like he can do all of that on top of what he's good at that you see in The Killer. And I was just missing a layer in The Killer. And I still think The Killer rocks.
Yeah, I agree. But I also think that on the rewatch, it'll definitely hold up.
It will. And it definitely will. And like I said, I think the layer of it being about modernity is so cool, and that is gonna hold up really great.
There's 2 points I wanted to hit on that before we wrap up. Number one, the Arliss Howard character, the client, like there's something that pays off with that sequence that's set up at the very beginning where he's doing the big monologue, where he talks about how X number of people die every day or every year, and that his one assassination is just a rounding error in the full statistical roundup of deaths in any given time frame, right? When you have that bit of narration tying to the client at the end, it's brings to life this idea. I don't remember if it's actually spoken in the text of the movie, but the type of person that this guy is, the actions that he's taking are directly leading to hardship and oppression and death. Like that's just how it works. Like he has all his fucking stocks and shit up and going on his computer, and that's who this guy is. Like he is a billionaire who feeds off of people, you know, lower in the social status than him. So it's a direct connection from the killer talking about just the rounding errors to this guy being like, oh, I don't know who the fuck you are. I don't know what you're talking about. I have no idea about what my actions have, the ripple effects that my actions have on the world. It's exactly that. And it just, it's one final nail on the coffin of this full concept that this movie has about how brutal our modern reality is and how easy it is for these types of people to take advantage of, how easy it is to infiltrate the capitalist system that we built.
Yeah, like there's like almost a Black Mirror episode buried in this movie. Like if you wanted to really exacerbate all those little
it's
plot
like
points.
Uber, like you can Uber an assassin essentially.
Yeah.
Like you click on your fucking phone, kill, and you don't have to think about it. You have to look at anybody. You don't have to talk to anybody, and it just happens.
What if you could buy a murder on Amazon?
Exactly. Well, that was the other thing I was going to bring up is I literally just looked it up. You can buy the key fob copier. I see it right now. It's $17 on Amazon.
You
It's
just
the key fob.
have that set up. Just go to a Dropbox near you.
It's right here. I could do it.
Yeah.
It's real.
That's, you know, it's something that doesn't draw a ton of focus in the movie, and yet it could, because it's a really juicy fucking idea.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I said Black Mirror, because Black Mirror like is so heavy-handed.
It would kind of
and being
run
like-
it into the ground. that
Yeah.
idea, but
yeah, no, there's so much you can grab onto in this movie. It's just like quieter than typical. And so if you were just like a person who just wanted to put on a movie, I would get if you put this on and you were like, I get like, this is good, but am I missing something here? Because, you know, this is one of the greats.
I do want to show to Lee just so she can see this the storage unit organization.
oh man, that is
The labeling.
incredible.
Like I just want her to see that. So because I know it's gonna get her horny. So
Yeah.
it's just the night will go from there.
Can you give us giggity? Yes. Can you? Oh no.
What the fuck is that? That's like a ringtone.
You gotta give.
I forgot to have
Jesus
the old.
Christ. I know what you just played for us, but that was not it.
It was the stock sounds.
What is that supposed to be used to get like to represent?
It sounded like almost like the GameCube intro. Yeah. Okay, last thing. The epilogue of him sipping on the drink back in DR.
Yeah, and he's like not actually happy.
Do we think that he stays there longer than 24 hours?
I'm glad that you said that, because I was thinking like there's no way this guy has a happy life. I don't know if it's 24 hours, but is it like a week?
I think
he gets back to work.
I think he stays there for a month, because you got to think
she has to recover.
she is so dedicated to him that she was so proud to tell him like, oh, I didn't say anything to them. Don't worry, baby. You know what I mean? And
That is
meanwhile,
true. There's another movie that is like seeing her broken ass perspective of all this.
yeah,
of just
because like whatever, you know what I mean? Like whatever interactions have happened in between them, we can't really assume that he's been charming her. Like he's a fucking
not
weirdo.
not seeing a lot of charisma from this guy.
Yeah, so it's like, oh, she's so head over heels that I know he feels bad enough that he'll stay for a month and then he'll be like, listen,
Funds are
Daddy's
getting
gotta go to
work.
he makes us some lie about, oh, they're charging us like property taxes now, and so I actually need money, so I'm gonna go kill like a senator.
Do you
Well,
think,
he's not getting paid. Does he have a boss anymore? Is he just like killing for pleasure now?
do we think he gets hired to kill George Santos?
Do you think that he killed Henry Kissinger?
No, that guy was done.
No.
No one needed to off him.
Oh, there's nothing needed for that.
No one's. You know a guy. I'm not changing topics. You know a guy is really old when he's like that evil and no one is claiming conspiracy when he dies.
Yeah. Especially it's an old Republican. People are like, yeah, he was just kind of old as shit. So that's just what happens.
He
to him.
broke 100, right?
Yeah, people are like,
God, that's fucked.
People
Yeah.
are like, God damn it. Why Satan really keeps the bad ones alive for longer.
I've been following a Twitter account called like "Is Henry Kissinger Alive?" for like 3 years.
How
Like, literally?
How did they take the news?
I mean, it was a big day. Now you can.
It was
Was
celebration
it like
all around.
tweeting like
thing is-
quote Henry Kissinger burning in hell?
I bet whoever runs that account is low key kind of, they're like, what do I do now?
Yeah.
You can't just keep posting like he's dead every day. Now
They're
we're
like,
tuned.
I gotta pivot. Is Jimmy Carter alive? No, that won't work.
That's Tim Heidecker. Tim Heidecker posts every month. He posts like an update that's like Jimmy Carter.
Yeah, no status.
status update. No update.
He's still going. Man.
I know. Well, it's because he's gonna die really soon.
Did you see him
old.
at his wife's funeral?
Yeah.
He looks really fucking old.
Yeah, he's like a billion years old.
Jesus Christ.
All right. That's David Fincher's The Killer.
Good movie.
What the deuce?
Will it make my top 10? I don't think so.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
like you guys
probably
are,
not.
you guys won't say one bad thing about it, and yet it's not making lists.
It's like right on the edge.
I will
But
say
that's not great.
it's in the teens. Here's the thing.
It's in the top 15.
Am I taking fucking crazy pills here?
It's in the top 15.
You have not. Neither of you have said one fucking negative thing
That's
about
not
this
true.
movie.
I've been saying bad things about it.
I think it's a
I
great
said
movie.
it's not as good as Mank. I said it needed more Mank.
It's just
And that makes it like a bottom 5 movie
this is
of the
how I
year.
feel about the discourse around this movie. Is like you can't like I'm not hearing anyone say negative things, and yet no one is giving it like
because
top tier.
It's a David Fincher movie.
I think, yeah, because
and
I
it's
think
not that great.
I disagree. Well, I think that it's,
But you don't disagree because otherwise it would be your number one fucking movie of the year. It's
That's-
not that great.
no,
It's not great enough to be your number
we
one.
just did a whole thing about like Poor Things in May, December, which I think are all like exceptional movies.
Yeah,
I don't
they're
think this
fucking
movie
better.
I don't think this movie is exceptional.
And I'm not putting it all on Fincher. Like I said, I think there are real problems with this fucking script, man.
it's an 8 out of 10. That's a great movie.
That's exactly. That's, you know what? That's kind of where I'm at, and that puts it in the teens. I watch a lot of fucking movies, Drew. For a movie to be in the teens is not a bad thing.
I know, but also for an 8 out of 10, you guys aren't critiquing it enough.
I said a bunch of bad things this whole time.
I'm just saying.
that.
I think
I've
people are
been more
scared to.
muted on
People
stuff.
are scared to critique David Fincher because he's so good. But
I-
this movie is
Here's the thing.
is not his fucking best.
I've said Zodiac needed more Mank. I have said that
That's true.
Social
Ernie,
Network needed more
what's your
Mank.
excuse, Ernie? Hunter said plenty.
I've said Mank had a good amount of Mank, and that's why it was my number 11
Because-
movie of 2020.
people
Talk to me when I've watched it on 1.25, okay?
I do think I think one of the things about this movie, why I'm not saying it's beyond criticism, because I don't think any movie is beyond criticism.
it's just
I think
missing
there's-
some fucking oomph.
I think that this movie is like, I said it before, it's a B movie that's acting on like the top tier. In the same way, I have like the same number of criticisms for this that I would for like John Wick Chapter 4, a movie that I also really like. And I think that that's operating on a great thing. I also think that there's a ceiling on what it can be. And I think there's a ceiling on what The Killer is. That isn't to say that it isn't like a rewatchable fun movie, but I also don't think it's like the defining movie of 2023.
It's just hard, I guess, because part of what defines this character is that he's a sociopath.
So
And-
what? You're at like a 4 out of 10? Or
And
what are you
yet,
at?
if you were to make him a little bit less opaque, the movie would be better. It would. It just
More or less the Smiths. Do you keep the same number of Smith songs?
I think that you make it like 3 Smith songs and the rest of it is like Smith's orbit bands, because there are a lot of bands.
I think it's hilarious that he only listens.
I know.
to
I
Smith.
so funny.
That
It's
is funny
really funny.
because really, what is this movie if not a movie about an autistic guy?
Listen,
I mean,
he has 2
it's more than
special interests.
autistic. He's a sociopath. He's a murderer.
Are you saying that one, Drew, I have 2 things. One, are you saying that all autistic people have the capacity to be serial killers? And 2, are you saying that he has 2 special interests? 1 is the Smiths and 2 is killing people?
I'm saying that all Smiths fans are serial killers.
Okay, all right.
I'm saying that Michael Fassbender, who quit acting to become a race car driver, is autistic.
How's his F1 career going?
All right, this movie falls at number 6 in my Fincher ranking. I just looked it up. I go Social Network, Zodiac, Gone Girl, Fight Club, 7, Killer,
And then what?
Dragon Tattoo, Mank, Benjamin Button, Alien Game, Panic Room, which I haven't seen. I just put them at the bottom because I haven't seen them.
I think, okay, so I don't have the
So
Fincher
it's
rankings.
at the middle, you know? It's right
Hold
there.
on. Let me pull up the Fincher rankings real quick.
It's not in the top 5.
I will place it in real time right now. I would put this behind Zodiac. I would put this behind Social Network. I would put this behind Gone Girl. I would put this behind 7. I'd put this behind Fight Club.
Yeah, that's what I said.
I
That's the same
think-
thing I said.
I think I might put this behind Mank. This is like on Mank tier for me. This is ahead of The Game. It's ahead of Panic Room. It's ahead of Benjamin Button.
Hey da.
I really like the Mank era
I really wish-
that he's entering right now.
I wish there was in Mank he had actually said, "I want credit," so he could have that.
He
in the
does.
He
Drew.
does?
You were watching it too fast.
He says it
You missed
multiple
it.
times. That's Gary Oldman said it on stage at the Oscars. He just said, I want credit.
He did not go on stage.
He went
He
there.
never won anything.
He was there. He hosted.
Mank hosted the Oscars.
You don't remember? You forgot he was there.
He hosted in the Soderbergh year.
We have to wrap it up. Thank you for listening to The Killer, David Fincher.
You have to keep that on the soundboard forever.
I kind of want to do the entire like theme. It seems today
You just
that all you see.
And we just like sit here silently for
Violence
30
and
seconds and like look at each other.
Yeah, we're all just like,
where were those good old fashioned values?
Drew, do you think this is worse than Mank? It's worse than Mank, right? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So you can go and wrap.
I'd rather watch this than Mank. But
Absolutely. That's why he made it.
I think.
you shouldn't have said that.
I think this is on the Mank. I think this might be lower than Mank.
Okay. Well, thank you all for listening. Please rate, review, subscribe, like, and comment. Let us know your thoughts on The Killer. Check out weboughtamic.net, where you can get every episode delivered in your inbox. Join the Discord. Join the Patreon. Patreon.com/weboughtamic. Thank you, Run P, for sponsoring this episode. Where would you go pee during The Killer? It's on Netflix, so you could just pause it. Or you could just leave it running.
Well, you can't pee at the very end of the movie. Do you pee during the Charles Parnell stuff? Because I'm not peeing during Florida.
You could pee early in Florida and be back in time.
Okay.
For the good
Yeah.
stuff.
You know what? You
As
could
soon
run.
as you see
could run
Florida,
pee.
you could go run pee.
That's
I
fair.
mean, there are also a lot of sort of transitory scenes because one of the good things about the movie is it does a lot of like quick montage work of showing you how he gets from place to place. You could pee during one of those.
That's true.
Of him figuring out where the taxi guy is. That's a minute. You could go piss.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I take a quick piss.
Next week, it's oh my god, I'm blanking on
Field
the,
of Dreams?
No, that's not what it's called.
A League of Their
League
Own.
of Their
A
Own.
League of Their Own.
City of Angels.
And we will also hit you with The Firm before the end of the year. There will probably be a little more catch-up. Wonka is coming.
Okay.
Wonka is important.
Mm-hmm.
And we will talk about Wonka on this podcast.
Oh.
So help me God.
Ernest, I'm gonna talk about fucking Wonka.
Okay.
You
So-
know,
I'm going to talk about Twonka. I don't know about you guys.
Cruise, a little Hanks, and a big old Wonka.
Okay.
Okay. Happy holidays.
yes.
Eat up some chocolates, eat up some candy,
Twally Twinka.
and then we'll come back in the new year with our best of 2023. Thank you all. Thanks for sticking around. We love you.
Bye.
Giggity, giggity, go. Giggity, giggity, go.